I've been talking to the Lord a lot about humility and what true humility is, what it means to walk humbly before the Lord. I think most of us understand the concept of pride. That pride is elevating ourselves above others or thinking of ourselves better than those around us. Of course, the Bible says that, in God's eyes we're all equal in His sight, and that He is no respecter of persons. And the Bible's very clear that we should not think of ourselves more highly than we ought. But I wonder when it comes to humility, I wonder how often we swing too far the other way and think of ourselves more lowly than we ought. Perhaps we compare ourselves to others and say, well, I'm not as spiritual as them, or I'm not as successful as them. Or when it comes to God, we think, I don't know if I'm really worthy of His love. I've messed up so many times, or, I'm just a dirty, rotten sinner. The reality is none of that thinking is humility. In fact, it's false humility. In fact, the reality is that thinking is pride. And the reason why it's pride is because we're actually elevating our opinion of who we think we are above God's opinion of us. See, God says you are holy, you are righteous, you are loved, and you are worthy of His love. You're a son, you're a daughter, an ambassador of heaven, and you've been given the authority to represent heaven on earth. That's the truth about who you are. And true humility receives that truth and goes, you know what, Lord? I know what I think about myself, but I'm not going to let pride get in the way. I'm going to humbly receive that truth and live in the truth of who you say that I am. That is true humility. Both James and Peter quote Proverbs and say, God resists you when you are proud, but continually pours out grace when you are humble. Why is it that grace is poured out on your life when you walk in humility? The reason is because grace is the empowerment to walk out the kind of life that Jesus has called you to walk. So when you're humble before the Lord, when you understand who you are because of who God says you are, and you walk in that truth, then grace pours into your life and empowers you to live that out. Of course, Jesus is our perfect example. And Jesus Himself in the book of Matthew declared that He was humble. He says, bring to me your heavy burden and I'll take it from you and I'll give you my easy yoke and my easy burden. And He says that I am humble and gentle. And Jesus declares He's humble. But amazingly, in the very verse before, Jesus is declaring that Him and the Father are one, that the Father knows Him intimately and He knows the Father intimately, and that He has been given the authority to reveal to whomever He chooses the Father. He says here, you, talking to the Father, you have entrusted me with all that you are and all that you have. So here is Jesus saying to the entire world, this is who I am. I am the Son of God and I walk in the authority of the Father. And then in the very next verse declares that He is humble. So it's very clear to me that true humility is not kind of thinking, well, we're not worthy of God or, other people are better than me. It's actually receiving the truth about what God says about us and living from that truth. So I really want to encourage you today. Don't be prideful. Don't elevate your opinion of yourself above God. But actually be humble and receive the truth of who He says that you are and then live from that truth.